Welcome to the Hot Chicks Write Hot Books podcast with Jen Foster and Melanie Johnson, where authors give you their inside secret tips on how to be a successful best-selling author. Hi, welcome. I'm Melanie Johnson along with my co-host Jen Foster. We're here to give you another fabulous interview on how to write your book and learn something from our authors. Today we have a fabulous guest, and I first want to let you know that we are sponsored by Elite Online Publishing. They are the brand building publishing company. We help professionals, busy entrepreneurs write their book, share their story, and inspire us and help us learn from them. We also are sponsored by BookWritingRetreats.com, where you can come down to a villa down in the Dominican Republic and spend an incredible week and get your book written and marketed and published. So welcome everybody. We have Skylar James with us today. She is the author of a children's book called Shadow of a Doubt, and she's going to tell us about the whole interesting process that she had to get her book written, which is different than most authors. So I'm really fascinated to hear her story and her journey. Welcome, Skylar. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Melanie.
Terrific. Well, tell us, how did you get started as a writer in the first place?
You know, for me, it was sort of an interesting process. Writing has been a passion of mine forever. I went to school for writing, specifically film and television writing, and it's just something I always remember being a part of my life just as a hobby and a passion, even as a young kid. And I knew that that's what I wanted to do professionally, but I think like a lot of us, it sort of took a kind of meandering route for me to kind of find that foothold. And so I've had a ton of different sort of writing experiences in my past. I've done some entertainment writing, and in sort of film and television medium, and then I did a ton of speech writing. I worked in the nonprofit space for a little bit and had the amazing opportunity to write speeches for some high-profile events and speakers, and about things that are really impactful and you really care about, and you get to flex all those academic muscles that you remember from school and writing speeches and essays and all that stuff. And I was very fortunate in that somebody that I had written for responded to my work and liked it, and when they joined a company called Adaptive Books, which is a multimedia but specifically a publishing company, and they had asked me to come in and pitch for this project. They wanted to hire somebody to write a book for middle grade, 8 to 11-year-olds, specifically about a horse. And so I went in and I pitched, and I spent a while just kind of coming up with this story and these characters, and by the time I walked into the room, I'd already fallen in love with Fife and Shadow, and I could see the whole thing in my head, and I had it mapped out, and I went in and I pitched for the story, and they responded to what I was pitching, to the characters, to the story. I think they fell in love with them a little too, which is lucky for me. And I got hired to write the book, so it was a work for hire, and I was working with the publisher throughout that process.
That's so interesting. So you really came up with the whole storyline. It wasn't like they said, hey, this is the story, we want so many characters. So you had to create the whole thing and then convince them, compared to other writers that maybe they invited, to try and sell your story over somebody else's.
Totally, which, I think in some ways it's sort of easier than a more familiar traditional process. In some ways it's more challenging. It's like you don't have 300 pages to convince someone it's a good idea. You've got 15 minutes to sort of like sell them on it, in a room and tell your story. And so I think that's a real challenge, but, obviously it's a blessing to have, somebody behind you from the start and a team to work with too. And so that was really great. But yeah, it was sort of just, anything that you want. The world is your oyster. Pick your story and tell it to us. And so I'm sure that other people who pitch probably had completely different takes and totally different characters. And, I think it's interesting to imagine how different one idea is when seen through different people's looking glasses, like how we all interpret that same sort of nugget of an idea and how we run with it.
Mm-hmm. I love that, and I love the creativity involved. I bet you feel so honored that they chose you.
Oh, yeah, beyond honored and very lucky.
So tell us about the kind of the creative process that you went through to write your book.
Well, this was my first book that I ever wrote. So I think no matter how many things in different forms you've written before, it's a really unique kind of challenge. I found that when I sat down for my first notes call, and it's like, yeah, let's talk about page 270. It's like, oh right, I got to get back into that moment. It's like, I'm so it's a totally different structure, and it's and it's thick, and it's a lot, and that's wonderful, because you can fill all that space with emotions and thrills and tears and everything else, and so it's so much room to play with, which is so wonderful. But also, I think for a first-time writer, that process, it can be intimidating. So I was very, very lucky in that I felt really supported from the team, and I worked with a great editor, and we had a beautiful illustrator on it, and so it really felt like there were a lot of people who were coming together to support that vision, which was awesome. And I had a ton of creative freedom, which was great. I think that whenever you do something that's work for hire, you sort of always feel like, well, is there a big brother watching over your shoulder? And that could be an intimidating or scary thought. And I couldn't have asked for a better process. I had total creative freedom, which was great, a lot of space to play, but then also people to bounce ideas off when you needed it too. So it was kind of the best of both worlds. Very lucky again.
That's great. Great.
So tell me a little bit about, so you had a publisher behind you. When the book is done, then, and I see you've been to book signings and doing different things. Tell us how the publisher has worked with you to market and promote that book.
Well, that was it's a great process. We are distributed by Ingram, so we have an engine behind our publisher, which is great. So in terms of like getting into book fairs and going to book shows, and we traveled to New York for that, and we were allowed to have a presence there because of that. Sort of when you have one of those big guys on your side, it's a little bit easier to kind of get seen and things like that. But that being said, it's all the grind, it's hard work. I flew down to Kentucky, and I did a bunch of book signings around the Kentucky Derby, which was great, and in-store appearances. I've loved doing library visits. Those are truly life-changing experiences, getting to meet librarians, getting to sit with kids and read to them and see their reaction to the book, and share that story with them. That's been wonderful. As I said, it truly is life-changing, and to get to experience something that's been privately a part of your life for months and months and months, and to kind of send it out in there in the world and see it received, it's this really proud, emotional feeling. It's great. As far as marketing, that's not something that I was involved in that process. So I've been able to do some interviews and to do some press, and we've been lucky to get some reviews, and so that's been wonderful, and that's something that has been out of my hands, which is a weird feeling,
but you can give advice for people who are written their book and they are getting interviews and they are starting to do book signings. Through that process, tell us what you feel works best maybe when you're being interviewed, and how you should present yourself, and things that you should or shouldn't do during an interview process and or a book signing.
Great question. You can tell me after this what I've done right and wrong.
Have good lighting, right? We want to make sure you have good lighting.
It's all about lighting. I would say that I think that the most important thing, especially when, for me, my audience is middle grade and parents, and I think the biggest tip I would give anyone for interviews is just to be honest. I think that kids see through that PR spin. I think that the best thing you can do is genuinely connect with your reader, and I think to just kind of put it all out there and be very honest about your process, about your book. When you don't know, just say, I don't know. Kids ask amazing questions that are so direct and so specific, and sometimes they'll just catch you off guard, and I think it's great to just have a really open dialogue, and I think that for me that's served me well, and it takes away a lot of the nerves too. If you're just gonna be you, like, you can't fail at that.
It's much easier to be yourself and just be open, and sometimes you just have to be vulnerable and let it happen.
Totally.
Let's go back to the writing process a little bit. So the book, now what was your discipline for writing? Did you do it every day? Did you do it so many days a week? Did you have a schedule?
I am a very disciplined writer. I believe in, you just have to show up for yourself. There's a million things vying for your attention every day, and it's so easy to get distracted, especially, most of us writers work from home, There's always a lot of things calling for your attention, and I think it's just sitting down and looking at the screen, even in those moments when you can't think of anything and you don't know what the next words are, and I think it's just pushing through. There's this amazing quote, and whoever said it, their name is escaping me right now, but they said that being a writer is like being a shopkeeper, and you just have to get up every morning and open the shop. You show up for work. There's slow days and there's busy days, but you got to open the shop every day. And I think that's a great analogy. Sort of try to live by that one.
I love that. I love that. Now, how did you go about doing your compiling your ideas and organizing the content?
Well, again, for me being sort of very, I don't know if type A is the right word, but I'm highly organized and lots of notes. Like I have, in my office, I will just have note cards strewn all over the floor, but in a very specific order. And every time you finish like a scene or a chapter, you get to pick up a note card, which is the best feeling in the world. You get that one off the floor. But I live and die by an outline. I really believe the more you can beat your story out in the beginning, the better it will serve you as you go. And, of course, things will change as you're writing. You could be flexible with it, but just to have that skeleton, for me, is crucial.
And, we're so happy to have you today because you have the experience of doing speech writing, and a lot of our authors do have to do speeches. So give us some tips on writing speeches.
Always open with a joke. That's the best advice I could give you. It breaks the ice. It warms up the room. I mean, the best ones I have written, you'll see like a headline the next day, and you'll see the joke get quoted, and you're like, okay, that one landed. But I think that with the speech, you have to realize that it's a captive audience. So with a book, it might be a bedtime story that somebody reads every night before they go to bed for a month. It might be just a weekend where they tuck in. But, a speech is a captive audience, finite period of time, really diverse audience. And so I think it's, be as bold with your points as possible, really have those headline kind of making statements that you want to get across, what's important to you, and then, clean and concise, get out of there quick.
That's good. Now, I'm always worried about, like, the humor, like, what if it doesn't go over? So it's kind of a tricky thing.
It can be. It's definitely hit or miss, but I find that especially in those situations, people always, they always say the number 3 fear is public speaking. That is what people are most afraid of. So I think that there's a lot of compassion for the person standing up there. So I think people want to laugh. So, I think as long as you're comfortable and you're friendly in your delivery, I think people are inclined to like that speaker. I think we all have a little bit of empathy for the person who's probably sweating bullets up there in front of us.
Nice to think. So can you remember one of your best jokes that you had in a speech?
Oh, geez.
I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot here.
I'm trying to think which ones am I allowed to tell. I think I'm going to have to email you one, and we'll put it on the end. How's that?
Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah. Kind of put you on the spot.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the editing process that you went through on your book. Because I know people feel like, I've written my book and I've had someone read it and it's ready to go. And a lot of times you need multiple people. So
Yes. So we had 2 editors that I worked with on the book, and it can be a difficult process. I think that it's oftentimes a very different skill than writing, and I think one of the hardest things to do is to receive notes on something and make changes on something when you've been living with it and working with it for so many months. And I think that the tendency as a writer is to feel like, well, nobody understands this the way I understand it, And I think that it's for me, it's something that I've done with time, and I know that sounds sort of ironic since it's my first book, but just in terms of writing as a process, I think it takes time to become comfortable with the process of rewriting and to realize that nothing is too precious. So for me, it's kind of this push and pull, and I draw on this sort of for advice that I give young writers who ask for advice, and it's this combination of, on one hand, you have to be willing to change. You can't be too in love with your own words, and you have to be able to see it from somebody else's perspective. Mm-hmm. On the flip side of that, you have to fight for what you believe in. So I definitely had instances where, I was getting a note and I was just sure that, there was another way to do it, or what we had was right, and I think that when you have a really good editor, as I did, they respect that and they listen to you, and it opens up a dialogue. And so it's okay also to say, you know what, we need this speech and here's why, and then maybe there's a way to tweak it and change it, and then you get that compromise that works. But I'd say, yeah, don't be too in love with it, but don't be afraid to fight for it.
That's great.
And what do you think someone should look for when they're hiring a writer to work with them?
Ooh, good idea. You want to just say me, right? Yeah. Short answer.
You have blonde hair and
exactly a moderately well-lit room. I think one of the things, if the shoe was on the other foot and I was sitting on the other side of that table, I think I would look for enthusiasm. I think that it can be a long process, and you want somebody who is just really happy to be there and really excited about the story they have to tell, and really grateful for the opportunity. And so I would say enthusiasm would probably be my number one. And closely behind that, I would say just a real feel for the characters. I think when people are talking about their stories and what they want to do, I think that the person who knows inside and out, they know that their character has that cup of coffee every morning at 4 a.m. before he gets up to train the horses. It's knowing those details that probably don't make it into the book at the end, but it's really understanding that world, and it's really being immersed in it. And I think that richness translates to the page, whether or not those specific details do or not.
Very good. And I think the same things would apply if they were writing nonfiction books as well, that they would be passionate about that person's story and knowledge that they're going to share, don't you?
Absolutely, yeah. Especially, you're right. I mean, I can imagine if there's a research phase too, that is probably something you really want somebody who's passionate and directed, and I think absolutely that applies there for sure.
So what do you think out of your characters? Let's talk about your book for a little bit. What is the learning message from your book?
For me, the biggest takeaway that I hope my readers walk away with is just don't give up on your dreams. No matter how difficult things seem, and no matter how down and out you may feel, things can always turn around, and with passion and perseverance and good friends, they will. And I just think that being a dreamer and believing in something bigger than yourself is so powerful, and it's so motivating, and I want that for every one of my readers.
Yeah, that's good.
Great. So inspiring. I love that. We love to inspire everybody. Be passionate about your dreams, follow your dreams, dream big.
Definitely. Yes.
So we can find your book on Amazon, and we're gonna put it on our site as well. So you can find Shadow of a Doubt right here at Elite Online Publishing, as well as Hot Chicks Write Hot Books. So come to our website and you can get Skylar's new book that's been out for not that long, right?
Yes, it's new still. It's exciting. Fresh book smell.
And it's on Amazon, and where else can you get it? Do you have a website they can go to?
Yes, SkylarJamesBooks.com.
Okay, great. We'll make sure we put that link up at the bottom.
Awesome.
Terrific. Well, thank you for coming. And again, we want to remind everybody that this is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing. We are the brand building publishing company, and we'd love to help you publish your book and market it and become a #1 best-selling author. If you'd like to spend a week with us and get your book published and marketed and written, we do it all in 1 week, and you come down to the Dominican Republic and stay at a villa, and we write books on the beach. So we'd love to have you come there. Just go to bookwritingretreats.com, as well as eliteonlinepublishing.com. So thank you, Skylar, so much for coming and sharing all those great things for us about learning about editing and writing and books for hire, and about making sure that you dream big and shoot for the stars.
Thank you, guys. Thanks so much. It was fun.
It was great. Bye-bye. Thanks.
For more information, visit hotchickswritehotbooks.com.